does anybody have any questions regarding to this presentation? So you could raise your hand and then I will give you the floor.
I'm going to stop sharing, Mario, so that I can see the people asking.
Sure.
Thank you.
So I see Koos.
Yes. Hi. Hello.
Hi.
Hi, Maria. Thank you for your very interesting presentation. I was wondering how are policies or maybe even broader politics towards what you're raising, because one of your slides, it had like a very nice list of things to do and things to focus on. And I'm wondering what is Malta, or what are cities more specifically in Malta doing with the information that you provide?
Okay, so Malta had an obligation in 2016, had a deadline, actually, an ultimatum from the European Commission to develop a strategy, a long-term strategy. And it developed what are now published master plan for 2025 and the transport strategy for 2050. Mm-hmm. Most, not all, but most of the issues that I have raised in this presentation are actually understood and well known. And the strategy doesn't take into consideration these as main challenges for the system. But of course, what we find is that there's a huge difference, and I'm not sure how true it is for other cities, but there is a huge difference between policy and practice. What gets written and what gets done. Similarly, last year during COVID lockdown, the local authorities came together and published this nice booklet which talked about slow streets. And so the idea that you want to give space back to people, the concepts of pedestrianization, again, a really nice, fantastic document, but very little done on the ground. Mm-hmm. And so one of the probably most frustrating things is, of course, that you see, on paper, there is a realization that these are issues, but then in practice, there is very little that is being done.
Yeah, but this is mainly national policy, so maybe it's also a fact that it does not get translated by cities making more, I don't know, on the ground and local aspects, and also empowerment, which is very important with respect to justice and equity. So
yeah. We have also, so the urban agglomeration that you've seen is actually made up of, as you say, towns. We don't have cities really, but we have towns. And they all have local governments. But one of the things that we have found over the years is that they have very little power in terms of implementing large-ish infrastructure projects because of the limited funding that is given to local governments. And so between the funding structures and the institutional structures, most of the projects that would require investment in, say, for example, pedestrian networks or cycling networks are generally dealt with at national level and not at local level. And the concept of the regions has only been very recent. And again, they're not funded. Regions are not particularly funded. And so much of the funding remains at central government, with very little given in terms of devolution of powers to the local authorities. And we found that as a big challenge, in actual fact, in one of the studies we did for one of the localities a few years ago.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, thanks.
Thank you, Koos. Any other questions? I have one question myself. In the meantime, in some of the illustrations, we see the limited road width, especially in the historical center. Are there any plans of making certain streets exclusively for pedestrians or for public transport or something? Or are any advancements in that direction going on?
I think at the moment there's a lot of new discourse that is coming out with respect to these historical town centers, also because they were never designed for cars. Of course, most of those were designed for, I don't know, maximum a horse or two at the time. So they struggle, and people who live there actually struggle with vibration and noise and annoyance, basically, from traffic. So there is a lot of, I think, there's not a lot, but there's an increased sensitivity to the issues. There is, I think, a recognition of some of the issues. And some, not all, but some councils have started looking at the potential of pedestrianization or semi-pedestrianization to reduce that annoyance. So there is a start. I think compared to 5 years ago or 10 years ago, I think there's a better sensitivity towards the issues. Yeah.
Eva?
Yeah, thank you. I had thank you for your presentation. I work on car dependency in Flanders, so it's nice to hear about to hear another story and see the similarities with the differences as well. But I was wondering, maybe a follow-up question on the question of Koos. To what extent is there a sort of civil society or social movements who address the issues on car dependency and equity you talked about? So are there, is the policy being contested? Is there protest? And do these movements also have a certain impact, do you think?
Okay, so this is an important thing, because this is what has kept my hopes going in the past few years. One of the things that has been quite positive, I think it must have been 3 years ago now, or 2 years ago now, where there was a big protest with regards to opposition to large-scale road widening projects, and much of the discourse within that large protest, which was led by a girl, really a young student, who led then all the rest and all the other thousands of people to protest, was that it gave rise to other groups to focus their interest not merely on environment in terms of trees and birds, but also in terms of human impact and well-being. And so we have started looking at particular groups that are sort of mushrooming around, particularly driven by social media, which has been a great tool for them to push the agenda for cleaner roads, cleaner air, more access and more rights to people and pedestrians. There is a constant battle, so some of them are more vociferous than others. So the cyclists, for example, have a more vociferous approach, and they continuously clash with the politicians. But it's also very positive. I think that this arena for disagreement is necessary. And it's only happened, I would think, in the last 2 years. Yeah, it's that young to a certain extent. But that's where the hope lies,
I see that Koos commented in the chat. Maybe you can take the word, Koos.
Okay.
Oh yeah, no, it was just a small addition that there are some examples related to the question by Mario. There are some examples of cities retrofitting very specific, more or older public space for example, pedestrianization. So it's just a link to a project that might be interesting for you to check.
Perfect. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Any other questions? So I don't see any hands on at the moment. That will mean that the presentation was super clear. So thanks again, Maria, for the excellent presentation. And I would like to all point you out that the next lecture in the series will be held during the Transport Research Days. So soon you can register. I hope you all sent your papers to the conference and that we could welcome you during the Transport Research Days. In the coming days, we will also inform all of you about the lunch talks that we will hold around the impact of COVID-19. So once again, thank you for Maria, and I look forward to see you all during one of the next events.
Thank you. And thanks to everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.